Hello, hello, LinkedIn and today YouTube, because I always love experimenting where I send my stream to in addition to LinkedIn. Before I introduce my guest, I'm going to do a little magic behind the scenes to make the link work. We were actually, before we got on, we were talking about the tool that we both use. It's called Rebrandly. If you're interested, it's kind of like Bitly, but it allows you to change the destination after the fact. If that's too technical for you, don't worry about it. So here we go, just quickly changing the destination. And while I'm doing that, I will tell you, for those of you that don't know me, I'm Beth Granger. I'm a trainer, consultant, and speaker on the topic of growing your business using LinkedIn. And more recently, I am also the facilitator of a new council for the networking group that knew I was starting a business before I did 10 years ago. Very exciting stuff. My guest today, somebody so interesting. And also, by the way, I'm really jealous because it's 34 degrees here in New York. And what's the temperature down there?
Probably right now pushing 85.
Oh, that's it. I need warmth. Anyway, Josh Koerpel is my guest. Interesting guy. You are going to find this fascinating. So he has a BA in Spanish and a master's degree in mechanical engineering. I don't know what that leads to. He's the co-founder and CEO of firebuilders.io, something that I actually tested and played with recently. But this is the fascinating thing. He's previously a ship captain and Alaskan wilderness guide. He worked for years as a special projects mechanical designer for clients like Disney, Cirque du Soleil, and Metallica, only to begin building his own software solutions and transitioning to that B2B SaaS product world full time. How interesting is that? I love hearing people's paths. Very few people have direct paths, right? They do something and then that's what they do their whole life. Welcome.
That's right.
Thanks for
Thank
being
you.
here. Oh, and if you're joining us, comment, ask questions, share it out so your friends can join us. And if you're watching on replay, feel free to do the same and we will see it.
Well, it's great to be here, Beth. I really appreciate the time and the opportunity. And yeah, I'm in Key West and it's warm. And for everybody listening and watching, there are roosters everywhere. The wild roosters, they're called the gypsy chickens of Key West. You will probably hear them in the background. I do whatever I can. I've got like a water gun here and I squirt at them when they get too close, but they might encroach. So sorry about that in advance.
I was going to ask you about that. Well, I use a tool, fascinating, something you might want to check out. I don't know if you've ever tried it. A tool called Crisp with a K. It's a plugin that's a noise canceling plugin, and it's kind of magic. I don't know how it knows what's my voice and what's the noise outside. And this summer it was really hot, and I have a window air conditioner that's super noisy, plus the sound of my fan. If I turn it off, it saved my life. The ability to have the air conditioning, and I don't know if it would work for roosters, but could be worth a try.
Well, what's interesting is that the rooster noises, at first I thought were going to be just intrusive and stuff, because I also have a live show, but it's mainly on Facebook, and I thought, oh man, people are going to hate this. They're gonna, like, this rooster is going to be so distracting. Well, it turns out that it was the exact opposite, and now everybody loves the roosters, right? It's the thing, right? The one rooster we've nicknamed Elvis. He's the troublemaker. And everyone seems to know now who Elvis is. He's become like a little celebrity in his own right. So it's just crazy how that stuff happens.
Cool. So, okay. Interesting history and experience. How did you go from ship captain and wilderness guide to getting involved in software? Tell me a little bit about that story.
Yeah, well, I mean, the ship stuff. So, I was an exchange student when I was 16, and I lived in South America for a year, and that's where I learned to speak Spanish, and went to school, got a BA in Spanish. Then instead of, I didn't know what I wanted to do, so instead of like working for the UN and translations or something like that, I actually knew of an opportunity to volunteer on a tall ship, right? So and if you don't know what that is, for anybody watching, it's essentially a traditionally rigged sailboat. It looks like a giant pirate ship, right? And this one was in Erie, Pennsylvania. And so they said, look, there's a lot of work, like manual labor, to run these boats. You got to run up the shrouds, and you climb out on to the yard arms, and you're all pulling up sail together and stuff. Like, we need bodies, we need volunteers. So if you can volunteer 3 weeks of your time, we will teach you everything that you need to know. You can live on board, we'll feed you, the whole nine. So I did it, and I applied and got accepted. And instead of staying 3 weeks, I ended up staying like 2.5 months. I helped them downrig the ship. And then I got another job on a ship leaving the Great Lakes out into the Atlantic, went by the St. Lawrence Seaway. And that led me to about like 7-year career in working on these ships all over the world, and worked my way all the way up to getting my captain's license.
That is so cool and interesting. My father was a sailor and had been in the Navy, and he loved sailing. So one summer when I was very young, I don't remember how old, he brought up the idea of, during the summer, they had these things where you could go work on a tall ship or some kind of ship and travel at the same time. So I think we looked into it. I never did it, but who knows? We might have met on a ship.
That's right. We could have crossed paths, you know. It's like, I mean, it really is life changing. You gotta, it takes a certain kind of person. I now sort of have had so much time to reflect on all of those experiences. In retrospect, I was doing it just because it was exciting. I really liked the work. It was fulfilling. I wasn't sure where it was going to go career-wise, but all I knew is that I loved it. I loved that method of travel. I loved the dynamic nature of being out on these boats and just battling weather and squalls and seeing beautiful things and horrible things. Right. So anyway, that led me down a path. I did the tall ship thing for a while. I spent a summer guiding up in Alaska, using my license for that. But then I kind of quit it all. I went back to school, got a master's in mechanical engineering, and started applying a lot of the skill sets, communication wise, that I'd learned in the tall ship world. I started doing it for the engineering world. And I worked, once I did the master's, I worked for a company where we were like this small elite team that were responsible for designing a lot of stuff for the entertainment industry. So it wasn't just Metallica. It was like Justin Timberlake and Beyonce and just about every major rock show. We had a hand in designing and developing the crazy one-off machines that they use during their shows.
Interesting.
And it's crazy because they, when I say they, like the production teams for, say, Beyonce, will come to you and they'll say, look, our artist has come up with this concept, and Beyonce flies in, and then she lands into a dragon's mouth, and then it spits her out into a giant pool, and then the piano like flips over and they catch it on fire, like whatever it ends up being. But it's usually pretty insane. And our job was to figure out how to apply physics and math to make all of that stuff work, and then design how it would be done. So it was all about taking really creative ideas and breaking them down into executable steps, right? And there's no back of the book answer for any of this stuff. Right? There's nothing that you can judge and say, oh, is this going to work? Is this not going to work? I mean, it's never been done before. So you have to get really good at not only understanding math and physics, but communicating and proving, right? It's almost like being a lawyer. You're like proving that your ideas are sound and correct to massive Disney execs and stuff, that. So I did that for a number of years, traveled all about, and at the same time was starting to learn how to create my own mobile apps. So that was kind of a side thing. I cut my teeth with that. Then I realized that I didn't know jack about marketing and sales, nothing at all. So because of that, I really dove deep, and I found out that my engineering skill set fit perfectly with marketing, because I was used to doing these really complex technical projects, and taking creative ideas and breaking them down, which is exactly what people wanted to do with their marketing campaigns. So sorry, there's planes going overhead, there's roosters everywhere.
Love it.
So I did that, and I got really good at it. I started helping other people do it, and then I started realizing that there were a bunch of holes in the industry that I could fill with software solutions, B2B SaaS product solutions, and that is what led me to creation of Funnel Mappy and now Fire Builders.
Very cool. And so I found the whole concept behind Fire Builders really fascinating. Why don't you tell people a little bit about it? And yeah.
Sure. Well, with the one, because I worked with a lot of different coaches and consultants and helped them create these campaigns, and I saw firsthand how much time, energy, and money they spent to acquire customers, but none of them were spending that amount of time understanding and trying to retain those clients, right? They would create a course, and then they would just run people through this course, and then that would be it. They would get zero feedback. They would not spend any time aside from maybe the odd Zoom call with these folks, understanding how they're using the material, what they could continuously improve. And I couldn't believe this because this was such a foreign concept to me. Everything in engineering and marketing is like on a quest for constant improvement. And that's exactly what all of these people that were looking for courses and stuff were looking for, but yet that wasn't a thing. And rightly so. It's really time consuming, right? To follow up with 100 people. How are you actually going to do that on a daily basis? Well, so I created a personalized, automated way to hold people accountable on a daily basis. And now this tech platform allows coaches to actually hold hundreds of people daily accountable and do it in a very dynamic and very engaging way. So people can learn, coaches can understand how folks are using their stuff, and everybody's a little bit more aware and progressing.
What I found fascinating is we've all experienced all different kinds of apps and tools, and whether it be we talked about when we spoke the other day, we talked about there's an app called Noom for health and wellness, or there are different coaching type platforms. And I was talking about how sometimes they seemed overwhelming and there was too much you could do in it. And so the difference I see in yours is something you can explain to us, but there's something very unique about the premise and what you've done. So why don't you share
Sure.
that?
Yeah. Well, thank you. I mean, it's the tall ship background. It's the sailing thing. It's about keeping things simple. Absolutely dead simple. People use simple. They can wrap their heads around simple. And so the idea with Fire Builders is focusing on one thing per day, just one single thing. And, we've had coaches come back at us and say, look, I help folks like mompreneurs build businesses, and they have more than one thing to focus on. Can we adjust the program to account for that?
Right.
And we always have to come back and very politely say no, because the idea of waking up in the morning and just being able to focus on one thing, it's not that they're just getting one thing done, but that's the push that you need to start doing stuff. And that's where Fire Builders really shines. So yeah. What's that?
It's getting that propels you, I think, having that one thing and not being overwhelmed by the giant list, of things that you have to do. And I don't know if anybody who's watching on replay or is with us now, but has read the book called The One Thing. And I think it's an interesting
Pressfield. Concept. Is that Pressfield? Stephen Pressfield?
I don't remember, but I'll put it in when I change the text that goes along with this live broadcast afterwards. I'll add it in there so people can check it out.
Yep. Yeah. No, it's you're exactly right. Like it's the little dominoes, because there's an illustration in that book of like domino, and they're getting progressively bigger. But that first little one, that's all you need. And
right.
And that's what Fire Builders kind of allows you to do. And that's the structured part. That's that's the accountability side of things, the path that we try and help people follow. But the real secret to the success is the influential portion. It's the emotive part. And that's what makes us different than every other app out there, right? Like when you went through it, I could have just created a do one thing to-do list and that'd be it, and it was just, but the fact is that all of the narrative and the correspondence, the emails and text messages that you would get, it was all coming from things that my personal life, that I was explaining to you, or, things that had happened in my life that I found very inspiring, that helped me through, right? I really tried to create that connection, and no other app out there does that, including Noom. They sign you a coach, right? But you never really get to know them. And so that's why I think now, having gone through 3 MVPs of this and put hundreds and hundreds of people, that's really the secret to the success, is that Venn diagram like combination between structure and influence. You put those together, fire builders, and you have like this atom bomb of productivity in people.
Very cool. And I think there's something to be said for, there are days where you look back on the day and feel like you didn't get anything done. But if you can get that one thing done, you're like, oh, but I said I was going to do that one thing, and I did that one thing, whatever it may be. So
right.
It's a fascinating kind of thing. So tell me, what's the one thing about building your own business that's different in practice than it is in theory? What have you noticed from building businesses?
Well, that's a great question. Because in theory, you would think that everything is so straightforward, right? Like it's very much like we were just talking about with the engineering stuff. When you go through all of these courses, take physics 1, physics 2, right? You do problems, and that's how you practice, right? But you'll always know that there's a right answer and a wrong answer in the back of the book. And you can always compare your answer to that. In real life, of course, most of the time, there is no back of the book answer. And you have to really understand why you're doing something and follow your own course. Because if you're looking for external validation and you're saying, well, is this right? Is this wrong? Everybody's going to give you a different answer because no one knows what the hell is going on. So for me, in the business and the like software world, I have stuck to my guns with keeping things simple, because I truly believe in that, and doing things like the accountability stuff for really the right reasons. If you were to compare that to books on how to create SaaS software, chances are I'm not doing things that they suggest that you do, but it's working, and so I think that's the biggest difference I found between theory and practice.
I see the same thing with my business. There are theories on how to grow or scale a business, and people will say, the only way to grow your business is to have staff and not do everything in your business. Well, I don't want staff.
Right?
I don't want staff. So that doesn't mean I can't grow my business. I just have to do it in different ways. So I think with so many things, there are ways that have been successful for other people, but it doesn't mean you can't chart your own course, to use a sailing analogy like you just did before.
Yeah, absolutely. No, you're absolutely right. And it just makes it more fun, because there's so many ups and downs, and once you get into like a dip, it's very easy to get discouraged if you're acting upon someone else's advice and it's not working. And you're like, well, shit. Like, oh, am I allowed to swear on this show? Sorry. Like, it's the sailor. So it's very discouraging, because you say to yourself, well, what am I supposed to do now? But if you're guided by your own internal compass, then during those dips, I think anyway, you're much more prone to pull yourself out and continue on, which is really the key. Yeah.
And be open to me, it's being open to experimenting and trying something and seeing if it works or not. And I love that about having my own business, right? So it's fascinating to me.
Yeah. It's great. I mean, because that's really the name of the game. It's like, yeah. You come up with an idea, a hypothesis of some kind, you test it out, you figure a way to measure the results, and then you look back and you say, man, did it work? Did it not work? What do I have to change to make it a little bit better? Yep, that's all it's been. And that's actually how Fire Builders grew. Maybe I didn't tell you this, but the first time I've ever really built the accountability thing, it wasn't because I wanted to help coaches hold all of their people accountable, right? My mom is an author, and she was having a really rough patch of writing for her second book and was calling me a lot, almost to the point where I was like, Mom, like, I gotta work, like, but you need to hear some positivity from me every single day. So I'm gonna create a thing, right? And we'll put you through it. It'll help you stay accountable to write one thing a day, and it'll all be from me. That was the very, very first version of all of this. And then it has just now grown into a big thing. But yeah, that's how it started.
That is very cool. That is definitely there. The stories of how people start things and what causes them, right? It could be something as simple as that, or seeing a need, or fascinating to me all the time.
You just kind of solve your own problem, and then you say to yourself, oh, well, like, if I've got this, chances are other people have it, and I just got to figure out how to scale it.
Yeah. Fascinating. And so who has used the tool and has been the most successful so far? What kind of person or business, or what feedback are you getting on that?
Career coaches, right? Especially ones that are very dynamic, so ones that are doing, anywhere, I mean, from a finance point of view, 6-7 figures through coaching, and they have masterminds, or they have some kind of higher end course, and a lot of it is career focused because people are willing to really invest quite a bit of time into that space. But basically personal development, and the person that's running it, the person that's kind of hosting the whole accountability, they are wild and crazy, and people just love them. They want to get closer to them. They want to be BFFs. And that's where the emotive influencer power comes in, because then they're really participating and doing it on a daily basis. Yeah.
I know we know some people in common, and I think would be great for that. The personality and absolutely.
Yeah, exactly. Like, because you're so curious about those people too. You buy their course and you feel this big gap between you and them. But the moment that you can start to shrink that gap and hear about their daily life and what gets them out of bed and what they do, you're just like, oh, yeah. So it's good. It really works well.
Well, I am looking forward to potentially trying it for some of my projects.
Yes.
So, something else I was thinking about. I know you've said this before, so let's share it with everybody else. You think that there's something about travel and entrepreneurship that go hand in hand? Oh, and a comment. Hey, Charlie. Hey, Robbie. Nice to see you. Sometimes you never know if the comments are working, or people really live, or they're watching afterwards. And it's okay, because I love having this conversation. But welcome. Thanks for being here. So tell me, commonalities between travel and entrepreneurship, besides the things that immediately, right? There can be rough seas, there can be calms, there can be all of that. But tell me your thoughts on that.
My thoughts are that it doesn't matter what industry, what business, what product, what service you've got, right? What matters is your ability to connect and communicate with people. And the traveling, I mean, granted, there are some people that go and travel and they don't interact at all. They might as well just be in a bubble, and they just move through to see things just to see them. And there's nothing wrong with that. But really, true travel, in the way that I've experienced it, is getting out there, staying with strangers, right? Sleeping on floors, going, like, I bought actually right before I did my master's in Boston for the engineering. And right before that, I quit the tall ship industry and I went to India and I bought a motorcycle in New Delhi. And for 2 months, I just rode all the way to Tibet and all through the Himalayas. And man, let me tell you, like, you do something like that, and you put yourself in such a vulnerable position that that the stories and the people that you meet and the kinds of sit downs with coffee or tea or chai, you know, in India's terms, like you really learn what people are about, what makes them tick, and you see commonalities between you and them that maybe you would have overlooked because of the cultural differences that are on the surface. So anyway, the point is that the more that you can flex that muscle, the better that you can get at connecting with people and really being empathetic and understanding them, the more success that you're going to have in whatever business it is that you've got.
I love it. Absolutely. I know, you know, when I was a kid, I would always be embarrassed that my parents would talk to strangers all the time, whether on the supermarket line or wherever we were. But that has led to, both for me and I've seen for them, to lead to the most interesting things. My dad and my stepmother were once in Italy, and was it Greece? Well, they were somewhere, and because they got in a cab and they started talking to the cab driver, who took it as his own personal thing to show them around his island and show them.
That's awesome.
So if you are open to having conversations, and that happens not just in travel, it happens in daily life and networking and business. If you're curious and open to speaking to people, that, you know, people will make assumptions, right? That, oh, I don't need to talk to that person there. How are they going to help me? Right? No, speak to people, learn about them. You just never know where it will lead for both you and them.
Yeah, exactly. There's some fascinating things. Everyone has something fascinating about them. Very interesting. It's just sometimes you might have to dig a little bit deeper, but if you're willing to be patient and do the work, like, you're going to find wonder in everybody that you meet.
Yeah.
So I think, honestly, I think that I was so blessed with my parents shipped me off to Chile when I was 16, and that sort of set the scene for me. And I'm so glad and appreciative of that.
That's exciting stuff. I can't believe we've been talking for almost a half an hour.
Yeah.
It goes by so fast. And, you know, I love having these conversations and introducing fascinating people that I know to my larger network. Any last thing that you'd like to share with us, or anything you're involved in or coming up with, or that people should know about you?
Sure. Well, okay. So I'll part ways with this, something again that I learned in the sailing industry. But a guy named Bernard Moitessier, who's a really famous French sailor. He was, I think, the first person to sail solo around the world nonstop. And he has a quote that I've never forgotten. The work teaches you the work. So whatever it is that you are doing at this point in time, right? Don't worry about not knowing what to do, right? There's a lot of stuff where you can know what to do, but that actually won't teach you what to really do in real life. You got to just go out there and do it. The work will teach you the work. Yeah. So that's what I would suggest.
You're going to have to send me how to spell his name, because I'm definitely putting that in the follow-up text. This has been so much fun. Thank you for joining me, and say hello to the roosters and enjoy that warmth. I'm very jealous, and great to have this conversation with you. And everybody that's joining us now or on the replay, thank you so much for being here with us, and have a great day, everybody. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Beth. Thank you very much.